All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm going to just introduce myself, and then what we'll do is we're going to do a couple different activities, and I'm going to have to keep my eye on the clock because one thing about me is I tend to talk a lot, and I want to make sure that that we're giving enough processing time. All right, so who am I? I started my educational journey after I graduated from college. I became a program leader and then a field instructor for the MESD outdoor school program. And I did that for 4 sessions. And then I left, went to graduate school, became a teacher, decided I didn't want to go right into the classroom, went back to outdoor school, did 2 more sessions, and then decided that I needed to have healthcare and stable housing. So I went back into the schools. There I had the just real pleasure of teaching 6th grade, mostly language arts, science, and social studies for the last 15 years, most of which I was able to bring 6th graders to outdoor school. The majority of those were the full week. And then after budget cuts, of course, we did field science experience, which was 3 days. And we did a little virtual play the last couple of years. And I've been following outdoor school really closely. And then this year is my first year in a new role. I am what's called a student behavior specialist at Ventura Park Elementary, which is in David Douglas School District. So this school is K-5. I no longer take kids to outdoor school in this position, but I still am very close with the outdoor school community. And one thing that my job entails is called positive behavioral interventions and support. I'm kind of part of my job is overseeing that at the elementary school. And that's the system that we're going to talk about today. Something that you might have heard of. And then finally, my outdoor school name is Boo Boo. It's a West African name that I got when I lived in Mali, West Africa during college. We have 2 learning targets, at least what I hope we accomplish today. One is being able to figure out just some common features of PBIS schools and the methods that those schools use to target behavior. I realize certainly at outdoor school and a lot of different schools, we have different kind of feelings about how behavior is approached. And I am not going to be a defender of PBIS or love and logic or restorative practices or any of those ideas. I do want you to be familiar though with what teachers and students are coming to outdoor school sites, what kind of language they use, and how the system kind of works. And then I have a second goal, and that is we're going to try an activity where we are going to create some PBIS style expectations for a outdoor school site. And I'll go into a little bit more detail what that should look like. All right, before we go any farther though, I want to find out what you already know about PBIS. So we're going to do a Jamboard. Okay, if you haven't done a Jamboard in a while, this is a pretty typical tool that we used a lot in distance learning. I'm going to put a link in the chat, and it should be to everybody. And then what I'd like you to do is click on the link, and it should take you to a Jamboard where you have editing privileges. Okay, what your directions are, you're going to add a sticky with something that you either know already about PBIS or maybe something that you've heard about. That's step 1. And then step 2, what I'd like you to do is to look at what other people are posting. And if it's something you already know, or something that resonates with you, you can use the pen tool to draw a little check or star or anything like that. I left one as an example, so I'll show you what that will look like. That's the pen tool and the sticky tool, if you haven't done it in a while. Here's my example. I said PBIS is used at many schools that come to outdoor school. And then I drew some hastily. It's not easy to write. Okay, I'm going to give you about 5 minutes for this, and so we'll join back at 4:12.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I think if you can't jump into the Jamboard, maybe you can put some ideas in the chat as well. I'm going to read some of the longer ones. It says PBIS focuses on seeing behavior as communication of unmet needs and responding accordingly to meet that need. A lot of people are resonating with the idea. This is my first time hearing about PBIS. PBIS is used at many schools that come to, oh, that's mine. Yeah, I know that. PBIS uses positive reinforcement. Inform the students of expectations, including the schedule and what happens next and consequences. PBIS is kind of built around the carrot rather than the stick, I think. I think it has tiers. Yeah, we'll talk about that. PBIS has clear expectations. PBIS is a specific process, focuses on different areas and locations. Question mark. Someone's heard of a PBIS conference. I might get to go to a conference, a PBIS conference in San Diego. I'm going to be truthful. I'm more excited about the San Diego part than the PBIS part. We'll see if I get to go. All right, you know what? I see our activity on the Jamboard is kind of slowing down. I feel like I have a pretty good feel for where we are. So let's see if I can go back to the presentation. All right, Christy, are we seeing it again? Okay, perfect. Thanks, everybody. Let's just start from the beginning. Okay, I'm going to give you an overview, and then we'll do an activity. So, what is PBIS? And it sounds like a fair number of people. This is brand new stuff. All right. Well, first of all, we're in schools, so it's an acronym, and schools love acronyms. Positive is the P, and it's not positive like toys and movies and gifts. The positive is supposed to be more like being proactive and moving away from using consequences to control behavior. And then this is behavioral. Interventions and supports. Okay, so it is an acronym. Hey, there I am at Outdoor School. I am on the top row, and that's when I was a baby teacher. Okay. The philosophy of PBIS is, so it's a framework, and I'll tell you that different school districts and different schools, PBIS can look differently from place to place. It's kind of like, it's only as good as the people that implement their systems. So there, you hear some criticism of PBIS, but really, I think the criticism has been directed at how some of the schools have used PBIS. It's supposed to be team-based so that we are moving away from just the teacher or just an administrator being in charge of student behavior. It's systematic. So the idea is that we, as a system, as a school system, we want to address behavior, but we want to be efficient and effective. So instead of spending all of our time equally on all kids, we do have tiers, which I'll get into. It's school-wide, so it's something that impacts the whole school day, every student, every adult. It's proactive, so we're trying to address behavior before behavior starts. A big idea about it is that it's that we teach behavior, and the idea that behavior is something that can be taught, just like academics can be taught. It uses a lot of reinforcements and recognition of students doing the right thing. And then there are some different kind of scientifically based systems to work with more challenging students or students with more challenging behavior. We have a lot, like one of the things that's pretty common about a PBIS school is you see posters and visuals everywhere. So here's an example of something you might see. This is right outside my office, and it's about different character traits and just ways that that we can visualize different things. PBIS, the research shows that it should lead to an increase in attendance, a more positive and calm environment, a reduction in the number of behavior disruptions, and that would sorry, that would lead to greater learning. And like I said before, I mean, this is really only as effective as the people, the humans that are implementing it. So, so there's going to be, this is going to look different in different places. All right, behavior expectations, they're taught. They are taught at the beginning of every year. In fact, most schools will spend the first week or two going over expectations in lots of different areas. And so what they refer to those as settings. So say you are dealing with the cafeteria, there'll be a whole lesson on what kind of behavior we have in the cafeteria. Different classes will have their expectations all written out that they get taught. There'll be how to walk in the hallway, how to interact with people in the office. The one that I have on the picture is a poster that's in our cafeteria. And so you can kind of see what those expectations look like. The other thing is that a school, a PBIS school, will tend to have 3 to 4 main school rules, and then they will frame all of their expectations positively and in those categories. So these 3 are the ones that are at my school: be safe, be respectful, be responsible. And you can see how those expectations are stated positively. Okay, it's teaching them what should you do and what the expectation is. And then a big part of PBIS schools is that behaviors and positive behaviors are acknowledged. A lot of times, so I've been at 3 different schools that have used PBIS, and they all had some variation of like little tickets that students could get for doing and being caught doing one of those positive behaviors. And then, but more often it's just positive acknowledgement. So, hey, thanks for walking down the hall. Thank you for holding your tray with 2 hands. Thank you for using 2 pumps of soap in the bathroom. It's using that positive reinforcement that I know is something that's used a lot at outdoor school. Other things that students use for positive reinforcement, a lot of common things like students of the month, things that we probably grew up with as well. Different attendance awards, maybe a postcard that has something like good news that's sent to a student's home. Praise coins, I copied that off of off of a PBIS site. I don't know what praise coins are, but I'm pretty sure that there's something, some sort of kind of tangible acknowledgement. I've seen a lot of different like drawings and raffles, those types of things. All right, and then every classroom has what's called a matrix. Same thing, every single little detail of how a classroom operates will be thought of in advance and then be phrased positively in a matrix. And I know different teachers will often include their students in creating these expectations. When I was a teacher, whenever we would do something new, the first thing that we would do when I'm introducing the topic is we talk about, all right, how can we be, say, responsible with our equipment? How can we be respectful with our teammates? And that just constant, reinforcing of those positive expectations, it does a lot. I mean, we know, and I know when I worked at outdoor school, we talked a lot about setting expectations before doing any kind of group activity. So this is the exact same thing. PBIS, I find, fits pretty well within outdoor school, but I also know that as an outdoor school staff, that it was still kind of written like, here are the 15 rules, and you sign a little contract. And then if you break that rule, you're going to have to talk to an adult or the site supervisor or something like that. So it works a little different. Okay, so here is our next activity. I want us to explore how this could potentially look at outdoor school. Not that outdoor school has to adopt PBIS by any means, but what kind of language would we use if you were working at an outdoor school site and you had a school or a class from a PBIS school? How could we kind of mesh what the students, what language they're used to using with the types of settings and areas in an outdoor school? So we're going to do this. I don't think that there's a limit on how many people can be on a Google Doc. I could be wrong, but I don't know. I've been using Google Docs for a while. So I'm going to go ahead and share to everyone, and whew, all right. Let's see if that works, everybody. And I'm gonna try to share my screen again, and hopefully I won't Oh, look, I got 12 people on this already. So typically there's like 2 bullet points per box. And so since there are 48 of us, if you want to just pick a box and see what it would look like. And I have my example, I mean, really just thinking simply, thinking about like being safe. We keep our bodies to ourselves. Or you can think about how your outdoor school rules might be written currently. A lot of them still fit just fine. Okay, I see a lot of different folks are into this. So I'm going to share this screen so we can play along. And whew, you can't tell I'm sweating because it's so cold outside, but I am sweating a little bit. All right, I see some really good ideas. One thing that was really hard for me in the classroom, and it's hard when we're thinking about how we're used to telling kids to not do something, is thinking about how to phrase things positively. So, for example, instead of telling somebody to not do something, what should they be doing instead? We talk about kids like don't run down the hall. Instead, you would say, please walk in the hallway. I'm thinking there's one that says, don't pick up live animals. So maybe thinking about how we could say that positively. Let's leave live animals alone. Yeah, instead of don't share food, maybe only eat your own food. What I want to do is make sure we have maybe at least 2 expectations per box. So maybe if somebody can think about there's a campfire, how we can be responsible at campfire. As coming from a PBIS school, when I was a 6th grade teacher, I would always do class meeting expectations in a PBIS matrix. And they would tend to be similar to my classroom rules, but asking and putting in the kids in the driver's seat, what they can come up with. And again, with kids, it's even harder to try to get them to state things positively, but they can do it. And it looks like you all are doing a great job too. I know when I was working at outdoor school, we would at cabins, the high schoolers would have the 6th graders come up with, the rules for their cabin, make a contract and have them sign it. I could see how this would work really easily, especially if you're coming with most of the kids coming from a PBIS school, they would be able to do this. Another thing that might be interesting is, when you have students at outdoor school, asking kids what their expectations are at school, what are their main rules. Aiden says, I notice it can be hard to separate safety from responsibility, and the expectations are very similar. Absolutely. I think when it comes down to the nitty gritty, the how we state the expectations are not necessarily the most important part. It's how we're thinking about safety, being respectful, and being responsible. We had it at my middle school. It was respectful, responsible, making good choices, and safety. And you better believe that, sometimes being responsible is being respectful. Sometimes being safe is also being respectful and responsible. So you're absolutely right, Eden. They do. There's a lot of gray area here. But if you can imagine, when we talk about, what's more clear, just 15 rules and a signature, or really breaking down what different behavior looks like in a different setting. I would argue that it's not quite as important what fits under which one. All right, I see that it is just about 4:31, and Erica says there seems to be a big focus on the physical body. What could other expectations look like if the emotional was included? Absolutely, I love it. I think about safety and talking. I have lots of conversations about with students about safe behavior, is also making sure that other people feel safe emotionally as well. All right, well, thank you for just indulging me in my activity. What I'm going to do is go back to the presentation, and we'll have about 10 more minutes, and then we'll wrap it up with an evaluation or reflection, okay? So let's see if this will work. You know, when you come up with an activity, an online activity, and well, of course, you don't think that the computer's going to freeze on you, but it's like, where are they going to do it? Are they going to do it right? And you did it, and you did it right. Okay. The other nice thing about this is you can kind of feel what it's like to really generate expectations and rules as a team. And that's the whole point. It's not one person coming up with everything. This is everybody being on the same page. And that means kids, adults, it means staff members at all sorts of levels. Everybody's kind of accountable for this and accountable for modeling this as well. All right, now let's see if we get back to, okay, here we go. All right, so here were those directions. We did it, we did a great job. And yeah, my example, being safe on field study, keep your body to yourself. That's like the language that we use with kids all the time. Okay, PBIS, let's get back into the nitty gritty. PBIS is, a big part of PBIS is data collection. So, you know, I think a lot of times schools are talking a lot about, you know, making data-driven decisions, and if something's important, it's worth measuring. And so the only way to measure is to think about data collection. And so I just want to give you some examples of how the data is collected. I also see one more idea in the chat. Says, I also want to mention that attendance awards can sometimes be exclusive of kids with disabilities. Kids in general aren't always in control of their attendance. Is this addressed in schools? That's a really great point. I mean, I work with kindergartners, and you know, how much does a 5-year-old, how much are they in charge of getting themselves to school? So yeah, there's definitely some wiggle room, like I said, about how different schools operate and how they might use positive reinforcement in a way that's fair. Okay, so a couple different forms that are used in PBIS schools. The one on the left is called check in, check out. This is an intervention that we use. It's called a tier 2 intervention. So this is something that might be used for students who they've started to get a couple referrals. Maybe their behavior is showing that it could be they're trying to get adult attention. And so one of the ways we try to think about how can we get the student what they might be looking for in a positive way. And so this is one that I think is really equivalent. When I worked at outdoor school, students oftentimes would have like an index card that they go around and they get signatures from different adults if they met expectations, if they did something. So this is a really similar way. The difference is that those scores then become quantifiable. And so over time, we can start to narrow down is there an issue with the particular setting that can be adjusted? Is there an intervention we can try during a particular time of day or an area of a student's school day? I am working on trying to increase the amount of restorative practices that are done at the elementary level. And so one of the things that we are doing for kind of classroom level behavior is we still have to document it and keep track of it, but how do we also pair that with having, you know, positive restorative conversations with students in ways that we can try to get down to more root causes of behavior. There is, I don't know if you remember ever getting a discipline referral when you were in school. If you haven't seen a discipline referral, this is what they look like. Again, the top part of it is all data collection. So you're going to identify an area. You're going to really try to narrow it down to the biggest problem behavior that we're trying to change. You make a hypothesis as to what kind of motivation there might be. Why might this behavior, or what might this behavior be communicating? And then this becomes logged into a computer system where we can look at some graphs and we can see if a behavior is increasing or decreasing, or if it's happening at a particular time during the day. We can also look at this at kind of a macro level. We can see what are the issues that are happening at the school level, and as a team, what can we do to be proactive about addressing those issues? Each school will have a team that looks at this data and analyzes this data. It will include teachers, classified staff. It'll include people from maybe the district level, school psychologists. This is a team that generally at a school, a PBIS school, they have a team that meets monthly, and then they'll have a smaller team that'll meet weekly to discuss the kids who are struggling the most. Somebody asked about tiers. So this is something that PBIS schools use. It's similar to just any kind of response to intervention, where, this is a behavior framework. And as part of a framework, as part of a system, the purpose is to be really smart about your energy and how much time and space you're giving. And so generally speaking, the tiers are decided upon by how much a student might be referred to with that discipline referral. But sometimes if a student, say, has an IEP with behavior goals, sometimes if a student's behavior, even if they don't get referred very often, is unsafe, and for the most part it is talking about physical safety. I know somebody brought up emotional safety. Then they might fit into those different tiers. So this is really similar to any other RTI system, but this is what PBIS uses that data for. All right, a couple last things, and then we are going to wrap up. All right, so I did work at a middle school for the last 15 years, and I realized that all of the images and things I've been showing you are from my elementary school, but you might be like, what does if the sixth graders, or if it's sixth graders coming to your camp or in a middle school, I can tell you what it looked like at my middle school. Okay, so all of the classrooms have different matrices, and then there are, like, everybody had a behavior, like a planner, and in that planner had all of the PBIS documents. What this does is it gives everybody a common language to talk about different behavior expectations, and what behavior, how you're teaching that behavior. We're all at least on the same page when it comes to what lessons are taught. There were school-wide and classroom rewards, and at my school, there was a raffle drawing, and there were different, kids could be recognized for being leaders, and they might have different jobs, like working at an assembly, or I know at our school, sometimes that might be being able to be a helper. There are tangible rewards, so things like could be, a popcorn party at the end of the month for students who've demonstrated positive behavior, and intangible might be things like I mentioned, just positive reinforcement that we give, but also things like extra recess, things that are not necessarily like toys. I know that that's been a complaint by a lot of people when it comes to some PBIS schools relying heavily on physical objects. Weekly drawings and raffles. And then at my middle school, they had monthly PBIS parties. which is very interesting when we were in distance learning because we still did it, but it looked differently. We had things like trivia contests and karaoke and things that the teachers would lead. And it was a really, I believe that it helped to create a positive school climate, especially if you've been working in middle schools. That can be a challenge sometimes. And like I mentioned, our middle school and our elementary school too has a green team, which is a team of teachers and other staff members that get together once a month to look at those school-wide systems. And then I chair the PBIS team at my school, and that smaller team focuses on those tier 2 and tier 3 students, so the kids that might be struggling more. I wanted to address some equity implications. This is something that's really important to me, and just really recognizing that even the behavior expectations that we put on that matrix, they're generally coming from a white dominant cultural norms. I know this is a topic that we've been talking a lot about in the last few years, but I think with behavior in particular, that's really important to have. And this is one of the reasons why I'm ending with this. That when we talk about parental involvement, there are some cultural implications also, and different perspectives on how parents interact with schools. I know that when I was at outdoor school, there was not a whole lot of contact with parents unless the student really did something that warranted a call home. We tend to involve parents as much as we can. And behaviors that teachers view to be problematic can be related to race and culture. And I think that that's something that we're all trying to untangle our own biases, and that's been a bit of a challenge. I worked at an outdoor school site that where the site supervisor was really, brought this up quite a bit. This was 20 years ago. So I know these are conversations that are had at outdoor school sites all the time. And that race and culture influence disciplinary consequences. So when we think about what discipline looks like in the home, that can be based on race and culture as well as at school. All right, I wanted to thank you, and thank you for being so silently kind in all my fumbling. I just wanted to return to those learning targets. I can identify common features of PBIS schools and methods these schools use to support their students. Could I have maybe 1 or 2 people in the chat share an idea of what's something that you might see at a PBIS school? What's something you might see at a PBIS school? Consistent expectations, lots of posters, yes. Signs, visuals, behavior matrix, class matrix. Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, and then the second one, I can create a PBIS style behavior expectations for various settings at an outdoor school site. And I have the proof that you can do that. So thank you very much. And I think we have a couple minutes. Oh, it's 4:45. Christy, is that enough time for you?
Yeah, we're good to go. Thank you so much, Andy. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us.